Ladies and gentlemen, hello there and good evening. This is Al24 Midnight News streaming live from the capital Algiers, and starting with the headlines. Algeria has strongly condemned the coup attempt in Niger, stressing that it is following with great concern the developments in the country. After the Libyan parliament approved the roadmap of the 6+6 committee, the UN envoy Abdullah Batili confirms that the committee's efforts constitute an important step. And an incident happened during confrontations in the occupied West Bank of Nablus. A Palestinian young man was shot and killed by the occupation forces. After Russia withdrew from the UN-backed Black Sea grain deal, EU looks to cover transport costs for Ukraine grain exports by land. Hello again and welcome. I'm your host Abdurrahim Kashur, and those were today's top stories. Starting from the latest in the military coup in Niger, Niger's President Mohamed Bazoum has been removed from power, according to a group of soldiers who appeared on the West African nation's national television late on Wednesday. Hours after the president was held in the presidential palace, reading from a statement, the soldiers said that the country's borders are closed and nationwide curfew has been declared. Also, in the same line, Niger's presidency confirmed that the army did not support the presidential guard in detaining President Mohamed Bazoum, adding that the guard has started an anti-republican movement in an abusive way, as it put it, noting that President and his family are safe. In a statement issued after soldiers of the presidential guard announced that the besieged President Bazoum inside the presidential palace, the presidency noted that the army is ready to attack the presidential guard if the latter does not retract from detaining Niger's presidents. Also, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad, Mr. Ahmed Attaf, has held a phone conversation with his Nigerian counterpart, Masado Hussaimi. The Minister of Foreign Affairs asked his Nigerian counterpart to convey to President Mohamed Bazoum the support and the solidarity of his brother, President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, in this particular painful challenge for the Republic of Niger. He also conveyed the wishes of President Abdelmajid Tebboune to see the sister Republic of Niger quickly overcome this adversity and resume the path of political and institutional stability. In the same line of thought, Algeria has strongly condemned the coup attempt, or rather this military coup in Niger, stressing that it is following with the great concern the developments in the country. In a statement issued by the Foreign Ministry, Algeria renewed its attachment to the basis principles governing the collective actions of African countries within the African Union, especially the firm rejection of unique constitutional changes of governments. It also called for an immediate end to this unacceptable attack on the constitutional order and this serious violation of the rule of law. In the same context, the African Union on Wednesday also condemned the attempt coup d'etat in Niger. A statement released by the African Union said that the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Moussa Faki Mohamed, strongly condemns such actions. The chairperson also urged for an immediate cease of these actions. Now, in a different matter, Algerian Prime Minister Ayman Ben Abdurrahman arrived late on Wednesday in the city of St. Petersburg in Russian Federation, where he will represent the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, in the proceedings of the second Russia-Africa Summit and its Economic and Humanitarian Forum that will be held today and tomorrow. The summit aims to reinforce cooperation and strategic and multifaceted or affected partnership between African countries and Russia. In the same line of thought, African leaders have begun to arrive in the Russian city of St. Petersburg ahead of the second Russia-Africa summit, which kicks off today, Thursday. The summit is expected to tackle issues such as food security, in addition to ways to strengthen partnership between Russia and Africa. More in this report.
African leaders have arrived in Russia to participate in the second Russia-Africa summit in the Russian city of St. Petersburg. The summit is the main and the largest event in Russian-African relations. Moscow pays particular attention to its relation with the African continent, with which it not only has shared interests, but also common views on a variety of global issues and changes.
We are sure that a new multipolar world order, the contours of which are already seen, will be more just and democratic. And there is no doubt that Africa, along with Asia, the Middle East and Latin America, will take its worthy place in it and finally free itself from the bitter legacy of colonialism and neo-colonialism, rejecting its modern practices.
The summit aims to achieve a new level of mutually beneficial partnership that meets the challenges of the 21st century. Russia seeks to deepen its trade and economic cooperation with the continent's countries. Africa, meanwhile, would seem to offer promising prospects more than any other region. The continent is attracting huge interest among global actors who view it as a future global market owing to its growing population and vast natural resources.
Russia supports African states' aspiration to achieve social and economic stability and progress. It is important that our cooperation with Africa has reached a new level in recent years.
The St. Petersburg event is a chance to promote comprehensive and equal cooperation between Russia and African states in all of its political, security, and economic dimensions.
And in this matter, now we are joined live with our special envoy to St. Petersburg, Sarah Lal. Sarah, would you please, first of all, good evening, and would you please enlighten us briefly on the latest Africa-Russia summit in the wake of the African leaders and the delegation's arrival?
Yes, Abderrahim, good evening. A few hours from now only will be the official launch of the Russia-Africa Summit to be held here in the city of St. Petersburg, Russia, tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. The last delegations to participate in the event have arrived this afternoon. Some of them were received by President Putin, who on this occasion has expressed Russia's readiness to develop its relations even more with the African continent. And also, he has also stated that Russia wants to help African countries in their fight against poverty, but also in their sovereignty. So also, the President Putin has stated that Russia fully supports African countries in finding African solutions to African problems. For the smooth running of the event of tomorrow, a very important series of measures were taken to ensure the smooth running of the event. Tomorrow, on the sidelines of the event, President Putin will hold talks with different counterparts and also lead African leaders and participants in the event. At around midday, there will be a press conference held by the representative and the spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Maria Zakharova, who will address the concerns.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sarah Lal. You
there.
joined me live from Russia, St. Petersburg. Thank you so much for this explanation. Now, moving on, Air Algeria, or rather the Algerian airline, has announced the opening of direct airline between Algiers and St. Petersburg. There will be 3 flights per week. The new airline seeks to improve air travel between Algeria and Russia, improve bilateral ties between the two nations, and broaden the network of Algerian airline by enhancing their global presence in Eastern Europe and Asia.
إن افتتاح هذا الخط يأتي في أعقاب تعزيز وجودنا في الاتحاد الروسي.
The inauguration of this airline is part of the consolidation of our presence in the Russian Federation. It is a historic event aimed at developing air transport between Algeria and Russia and strengthening bilateral relations.
وتوطيد العلاقات الثنائية من جهة أخرى.
الاحتفال اليوم هو الأمر المهم.
This event has an important character. The inauguration of the flights of the Air Algerie company between the capital Algiers and the Russian city of St. Petersburg. This part of the positive development of relations between Russia and Algeria, a friendly country, an important partner in the African continent.
In Algeria still, and with the catastrophic wildfire, the Algerian Interim Minister Ibrahim Merad has supervised the setting up of a multi-sectoral commission to examine the compensation files of those affected by the wildfires that have ravaged some areas of the country. The minister stressed that all fires had been extinguished, adding that the compensation owed would be determined as soon as possible for all those affected, and that the local committees had begun to count the damage and the loss of citizens' property, which would be examined and assessed by the multi-sectoral committee. Cases of human rights violations and restriction on freedom in the Kingdom of Morocco have reached the level, a maximum level in 2023. Human Rights Association and organizations revealed a dramatic increase in number of arrests and judicial prosecutions against activists and journalists in the kingdom during the first 6 months of the current year, and called to those ranks to confront what they term the policy of injustice, corruption, and tyranny. According to human rights reports, the Moroccan security services are leading a systematic campaign to arrest Moroccan activists and journalists, which is a dangerous indicator that confirms the seriousness of the recorded violations of human rights and freedom of expression, which confirms that it is policy pursued by the Moroccan state. Libyan House of Representatives approved the roadmap of the 6+6 committee to prepare electoral laws in the country. The head of the council, Aguila Saleh, said that the roadmap stipulates that the elections will be held within a period of 240 days from the data, or that the date had been issuance of electoral. For his part, the UN envoy to Libya, Abdullah Batili, affirmed that the efforts undertaken by the 6+6 committee constitute an important step in the country. Mohammed Khatou.
With an absolute majority, the Libyan House of Representatives adopted in its headquarters in Benghazi the roadmap of the executive process of the electoral laws issued by the 6+6 committee, made up of members of the House of Representatives and the Supreme Council of the state. After approving the committee's roadmap, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Aguila Saleh, said it will allow the elections to be held within a period of 240 days from the date of issuance of the electoral laws by the 6+6 committee through 3 executive, constitutional and security processes.
It was decided to adopt the roadmap, and whoever runs for Prime Minister is required to obtain the recommendation of 15 members of the House of Representatives and 10 of the State Council. The observations will be referred to the 6+6 committee to try to unify the views and return them to the House of Representatives until the final adoption.
The Libyan High Council of State, which was the first to adopt the roadmap for the executive process of electoral laws, despite reservations about some of its provisions, has recently intensified its movement by holding meetings with a number of Libyan parties supporting the settlement process. In the opinion of the head of the United Nations Support Mission in Libya, Abdullah Batili, the current version of the electoral laws will not facilitate going towards the desired elections, which requires the inclusion of fundamental amendments to fill the legal gaps that hover around some of their articles.
The outcome of the 6+6 is being considered today. However, the electoral laws in their current state will not facilitate successful elections. Additional work is needed to refine the draft laws by filling the legal and technical gap identified by the High National Electoral Commission.
Pending the review by the 6+6 committee of the observations received from the House of Representatives and the Supreme Council of the state regarding electoral laws, millions of Libyans are anticipating the ability of the various internal political parties to turn the page on the crisis and accelerate the organization of the long-awaited elections.
Out of Libya, but still in the Sahel region, in his first briefing to the Security Council is being appointed, Leonardo Santos Simão, head of the UN Office for West Africa and the Sahel region, briefed the Council on the situation in the region, including national election, insecurity and food crisis. Rimzian has the report in this paper.
Political, humanitarian and security crises are taking over the African continent, particularly in West Africa and the Sahel region. Regional and international organizations are worried about the exacerbation of crises in the old continent. The head of the UN Office for West Africa and the Sahel, Leonardo Santos Simão, briefed the UN Security Council on the situation in the region, calling on all stakeholders to help achieve lasting peace, stressing the need for concrete long-term support.
La crise au Sahel est la somme des circonstances complexes.
The Sahel crisis is the result of complex circumstances, and its resolution requires concrete, realistic and long-term support from the region and beyond for lasting peace. We are all constantly reminded by the peoples of the region of our collective commitment to support their country's efforts in resolving these crises to put an end to the terrorism that has long overshadowed their daily lives.
The UN envoy to West Africa and the Sahel recalled that elections marked important steps toward democratic consolidation, but stressed that they were keenly contested, presenting real challenges. The president of the Economic Community of West African States also addressed the Security Council and urged its members for support regarding issues of food insecurity and the transition to constitutional order.
All the countries must return to constitutional order within the specified time frames. Your support to the transition to constitutional order in all the three countries is not only crucial, it is also in our collective interest. Food security situation in the region suggests that insecurity does not only affect our present, it also threatens our future.
Regarding the humanitarian crisis, the special representative referred to the worrying situation, with 6.3 million people displaced across the Sahel and nearly 30 million people in need of food assistance.
In Africa still, the Sudanese forces of freedom and change stress the need to adopt a political vision to end wars and establish a new Sudanese state through new projects that achieves sustainable peace. The FFC statement comes as part of the efforts of Sudanese civil forces to find a peaceful solution to the armed conflict opposing the army and the paramilitary forces.
To the Central Council, mind your business. Inform your allies' forces to go to one of their camps. They reach it and stay in it. They hand over heavy artillery. After that, if any one of them appears in a video stealing or looting, they must give back what they took.
Out from Africa to the Middle East, a Palestinian young man was shot and killed by the occupation forces. And according to the Palestinian Health Ministry, the incident happened during confrontation in the occupied West Bank city of Nablus. Occupation troops broke into a refugee camp of Ain in Nablus and surrounded a house there. This resulted in confrontations with Palestinian youths breaking out. To Italy now, where at least 5 people were killed following violent storms in the north and wildfires in Sicily. Transport authorities reported serious damage to the city electricity network, while firefighters said the situation was very serious. Several extensive fires were reported across Italy south, and faced with such a situation, the Italian government can declare a state of emergency in the hardest hit regions. Opening Russia-Ukraine fight, the European Union Agriculture Commissioner said that EU can help Ukraine export the bulk of its grain through overland routes and could help cover the costs of transport. This could be implemented through rail and road transport connections across EU member states that border Ukraine, such as Poland and Hungary, while the most significant line is through Romania.
This is not attractive enough. The trade using the solidarity lanes by Poland, by Hungary, for example, by Romania. Romania is the biggest transport corridor, but we need to consider the support for the transport. Without of this, there is a risk that Russia will be beneficiary of this situation, because it will be cheaper to buy grain from Russia than to pay for the grain from Ukraine, transported by Poland to the Black Sea, to the Baltic ports. The cost of this operation will be always higher than Russia can offer on the global market.
Russian Defense Minister called North Korea an important partner for Russia in his meeting with her North Korean counterpart. In his visit that takes place during the celebration of the 70th anniversary of the Korean War and the struggle against the US and its allies, and after years of pandemic isolation. The visit also comes as Pyongyang looks to deepen its ties with Beijing and Moscow.
My visit here is taking place during the celebration of the 70th anniversary of the victory of the Korean people in the Patriotic Liberation War. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea is an important partner of Russia that is tied together by a common border and a rich history of cooperation.
And now more international news in this roadmap.
Wildfires raging across Greece for more than a week decreased on Wednesday, though firefighters still battled on several fronts to contain blazes that have killed 3 people and caused thousands of tourists to evacuate. More than 20,000 foreign visitors and locals fled seaside hotels and homes on the island of Rhodes over the weekend, as dozens of firefighters tried to tame a front close to a mountainous area in the south, more than a week after the wildfires broke out.
Chilean teachers went on strike for 24 hours to demand that the government meet their demand for better working conditions. Teachers marched down one of Santiago's main avenues, holding banners and shouting slogans. Protesters called for the payment of the historical debt owed to teachers by the government since 1981, as well as a plan to address school violence and payments of the retirement incentive that have been overdue since 2020.
Hundreds of Albanian firefighters battled the blazes that have raged in the country's southern region on Wednesday, while a firefighter helicopter was dropping water over a forest on fire. The firefighters working near the village of Kakran were supported by 102 members of the Albanian armed forces, and 11 military vehicles were deployed to the area, according to the Albanian Ministry of Defense. As one of the solutions to the wildfires, many farmers set fire to cultivated fields to clear stubble, weeds and waste before sowing a new crop.
On the same day that Peru's legislature elected new leaders, dozens of protesters clashed with riot police outside Congress on Wednesday. Peruvian police used tear gas and charged a group of protesters who gathered outside the Congress building to protest the new boys' election. A coalition of representatives from left and right-wing parties was elected to lead the Congress in the next legislative session, igniting discontent.
Ending up with sport, during the IOC invitation ceremony of Paris Summer Olympics 2024, President Thomas Bach has delivered a speech before the representatives of the world of sports and athletes and handed out the 203 invite letters out of 206 National Olympic Committee. The president of the IOC has also insisted that the goal of this event is to unify and bring the entire world together in peaceful competition. Although Russia and Belarus were missing in the list of the participants, however, the door is still open for them to take a part as neutrals.
In accordance with the Olympic Charter, it is therefore my great honor and pleasure to mark this important milestone today by inviting the athletes of the world to come together in Paris, France. The mission of the Olympic Games is to unite the entire world in peaceful competition.
And with this, we reach the end of our news bulletin. Thank you ever so much for being with us in this late hour. For more updates, you can follow our social media platform. And all I can say at the end, take care of yourself. Good night.